That's, a nice smile you're sporting there, Barry. Why do you have so many teeth, and why are they jutting out at such weird angles? That's very unsettling. I don't know. Hey guys, how you doing? Tekking here. Well, Barry kinda has the right idea. I want you all to smile for this. Just think of the happiest moment of your life, or maybe the saddest moment. I don't know what makes you smile. I don't know. Just think of something to make you smile. Yeah, that's right. That's the perfectly normal, average, human smile that we do on the daily basis. All of us, right? Yeah. Okay, so, ow, that really... A couple weeks ago, I did a My Hero Academia video. It was about the successions for One for All, and I also had to start that video up with, like, the weird smile like Nana did. He's like, Toshinori, you gotta smile! So I don't know what it is with the shonen tropes, but anyway, okay, give me a second, I need to grab my D. I'm just gonna... Okay, here we go. So... It's a visual gag, you see? So if you happen to be listening to this, like the audio, like a podcast, or maybe you're driving right now and you're not paying attention, like, I gotta grab my D. It's like, what? Okay, so, it's not the biggest D in the world, but it'll work for our purposes right now, okay? So what I want you to do, if you're still listening to the audio of this, is, turn this D sideways in your mind. I'm just gonna do it for you here. Okay, so there we go. Now, what does this look like to you? That's right. Don't snap with the finger that you sliced with a knife a couple days ago, Matt. Alright, what does this look like to you? It looks like a smile. That's right. There's nothing else it could look like, okay? Also, we have to include the little beauty mark here, which, I guess I have, but maybe not everybody else has. But I like my little mole. I like the little beauty mark there. Alright, so, I'm gonna set this D down right over here. Okay. So today, I got a comment on a live stream that was basically asking me, hey, what's the deal with all the members of the Will of D dying with a smile on their face? When Ace died, when Saul died, when Roger died, that's the big one, of course, at his execution. He let out a big hearty laugh, and he's like, you want my treasure, mateys? You can find it if you just find it. Bye! And he smiled, and then they ended it there. That seems to be a common trait with the bearers of the Will of D, right? So somebody asked me the question, like, why does that happen? And I was like, oh, well, that's because Oda does that. That's the reason. Because Oda... It was a moment where I started to think, like, wait, why does that actually happen? Because I knew it was a thing. It was like a common thread that connects all of the Will of D bearers that have died, of course. Rouge as well. Rouge gave birth to Ace and then died shortly thereafter because of the intense childbirth, cradling her child, and she was smiling, and then so she died shortly thereafter. So yeah, and we covered Saul, and then Ace, and then the one time in Logtown when Luffy was about to be killed, like right before the sword hit his neck, he was smiling as well, like, well, sorry Zoro, sorry Sanji, sorry guys, I'm dead. And then, the lightning bolt came down and saved him. But if it hadn't, right then and there, Luffy's head would be in the town square, but it would be letting out a smile. And then this is not a bearer of the Will of D, at least not that we're aware of, but Kozuki Oden died. We got to see his death in the last chapter in the flashback. And when he, sank beneath the giant pot of boiling oil, we saw a smile, kind of like a Cheshire cat sort of smile, staring back up at us from the surface of the oil, probably like mocking Orochi in one last time. How dare he smile at his own execution? Right? So, we're gonna be talking about that today. And the guy, his name was James, that left the comment. He's like, is it because that, when you turn a D sideways, it kind of looks like a smile? And I'm looking at that, and I'm just like, no, that can't be the... Well, listen, reading this story for as long as I'm sure we all have, maybe you guys are just new to One Piece. If that's the case, let me tell you something about the story, okay? It's not really a spoiler, it's just something you should know if you're just getting into One Piece. Oda kinda likes puns and jokes and references like that. Like, the whole reason why the members of the Will of D die with a smile on their face, because if you just turn the letters sideways, it kinda resembles a smile. Like, I'm not saying that's absolutely the reason for it, but I could see Oda pulling that shit, cause that's how he does things. But yeah, okay. So, the whole idea with the Will of D comes down to the inherited will. Okay? The Clan of D, which we still don't know much about, apparently started during the Void Century. Could have existed even before that, but was very prominent during the Void Century. Joy Boy had something to do with them. When the world government came to power, the Will of D clan was apparently the ones that resisted that power or fought back against it, and their descendants are living today in the One Piece world. We got Blackbeard, Rocksteady, Zebek. He was the most recent addition to the Will of D. We found out about him that he is actually a D. Sengoku said his full name. Luffy, Ace, Roger, Garp, Dragon, Jaguar D. Saul. All these members are still the descendants of the original clan of D. All right. So, and whenever we do see one die, they always have a smile on their faces. So one way that you can immediately look at this is like, okay, all of these clan members are, even if they're unaware of it, because you figure even the people that have the Will of D, or bear that initial D, they don't know what it means. Luffy doesn't, Jaguar D. Saul doesn't. The way that Saul talked about it with Robin when he washed ashore at Ohara was basically like, yeah, well, my family members have had the D in their names for generations now. I don't really know what it's about. I'm just a cowboy giant marine, but, it's there and I just have the D in my name. Right? So that's the way it goes. Law was interesting because the way Law spoke about it, Law's full name is Trafalgar D. Water Law. Okay? And the water part comes from his mother's side. The D, I guess, therefore comes from his father's side of things, which I guess that also lends to the belief that Law's dad, the doctor we only got to see a little bit of during his backstory at Flevence, the White Town, I guess this guy also had the Will of D in his name. When they passed it on to Law, they said, though, keep it a secret, because other people, it's not the kind of thing you want to be telling other people, probably because they were aware of the persecution, because those that bear the Will of D, or just the initial D in their names, are enemies of God, enemies of the Celestial Dragons, the Tenryubito. Probably not a good idea to announce yourself, hi everybody, how you doing? I'm Matthew D. Crawford. What's the D stand for? Oh, I don't know, it's just in my name. Yeah, and if the Celestial Dragons get wind of that, they'll probably want to find out what's going on here. I guess it doesn't matter if your middle name actually starts with a D. Like, if your middle name's like, hi guys, I'm Matthew D. Crawford. It's like, what's the D stand for? It's Duncan. I was named after my great uncle. I'm like, oh, okay, that's fine. Sit down, have a beer. My middle initial, by the way, is not D. It's a P. It's Paul. So it's P's and D's, kind of. You just flip it, and there you go. Close enough. The Will of P. I follow the lineage of Pedro until my dying breath. Okay. So here's the thing, though. That's a fascinating thing just in its own right, that only very few people actually know what the D means. Like, Dragon might have very well known what the D meant when Luffy was named, okay? But a lot of other families, like Saul's family and Law's family, didn't actually know what the D meant. However, they knew it was very important to pass it on. That's kind of weird. That's kind of just like, all right, well, let's name our son Trafalgar D. Law. Why do you have to give him the D? Well, I don't know. My dad gave me the D, and it's a letter of the alphabet. That's what we're talking about right now, okay? Oda, you couldn't have picked any other letter, could ya? It couldn't be the Will of G. All right, the Will of G wouldn't be having these problems right now with the D standing for something else, okay? But no, it's like, my great-grandfather had it in his name, and then he named his son, and then his son had it, now I have it, now I'm gonna give my son the initial. Don't really know what it means, but maybe something far back in the family just ingrained it in tradition. Even if they didn't know what it meant, it was like, it's very, very important that it gets carried on to the next generation. So much so that they just keep it going down, even though they've long since forgotten what it actually stood for, okay? It's just weird that they keep passing it on, right? As long as they have, okay? Now, like I said, certain families like, Garp and Dragon, with all the connections they had, I'm sure Dragon knows what the Will of D means, or if he doesn't know exactly, he's got a pretty good idea what it stands for. I'm sure Dragon knows, okay? And that's why he named Luffy as such, right? So that's one fascinating thing. But the other thing is, they don't know what it stands for, but they all share that inherited will. And we see that for whenever they die. The idea here, at least I have, is that every member of the Will of D has a different task they need to fulfill in the world. When their time comes, they have to do something, okay? That's what that really means in the inherited will. In order to take down the world government, It's all of these individuals throughout the centuries performing these certain tasks. Some of them might be very minor. Some of them might be big tasks that really do change the world right then and there in that moment. Other tasks might just be to inspire someone else to get moving, like Saul inspired Robin. Okay? So it might be something like that. And so whenever they die with a smile on their face, that indicates that that task has been fulfilled, and they can die peacefully knowing that what they did will not end there with them. Their will carry on. It can also be the actual literal will of the individual. Like Saul was, laughing when he died, when Aokiji froze him, like, Darashi, Robin, you need to go out there in the ocean and find friends, Darashi. So, in a sense, that, once again, that inspired Robin because she's out there in the world, she's with the Straw Hats trying to find the real poneglyph and crack the secret on this Void Sentry. But it also, she inherited the actual will of Jaguar D. Saul himself and the things that he imparted onto Robin, cherish your friends and laugh and try to have a good time because, Robin didn't really have such a great time living in Ohara with her aunt and her uncle and all that stuff. So she carries that on from both directions, okay? Speaking of Robin, by the way, I'm not going to go into great detail with this, but I was just working on this video today and I realized something interesting. So we know that theory that I said, I'm not the only one, a few other people brought this up, the old theory that Gold D. Roger is Robin's dad, because Ovia is, of course, an archaeologist studying poneglyphs. Roger would have been journeying around the same time, so maybe they met each other and things happened, and then Robin was born. Roger, of course, left because, he's a pirate, so that's the idea. Also, the idea is that Ovia had silver hair, Robin has black hair, so it's indicating that her dad also had black hair. Well, not saying anything more, but who else knew how to read poneglyphs and had black hair and traveled the world with Whitebeard and Roger and could have possibly ran into Olviat? Kozuki Oden is Robin's father! Yeah, okay. I mean, look. I'm just saying that if you look at the timeline, 30 years ago, when Robin was born, was the same year that Odin set out to sea with Whitebeard. I know there was Toki and all that. Yeah. They could have ran into Olvia. They could have had a night of passion. 9 months later, Robin could have still been born. That all falls within a year. Odin is not Robin's father, but I'm just trying here because all we got from Robin's father was like, yeah, he died. He was an archaeologist. It's not important. I'm like, I don't know. That seems like it's open to interpretation to me personally, but okay, anyway. You know how there was that moment when Whitebeard was talking to Teach? That was like one of Whitebeard's last things after Teach, gunned him down with the whole Blackbeard crew, and Whitebeard remembers that moment where he was having that last drink of sake with with Roger, and they're in that nice place with all the cherry blossoms and everything, and Roger explains to, Whitebeard what the Will of D actually stood for. We have that moment where Whitebeard looks down to Teach and he's like, "It's not you, Teach. He's not waiting for you." Okay? So, what that makes me think, and I've always imagined, like, everybody that has the Will of D, they're enemies of the world government. That's pretty much confirmed from everything we've seen so far. Even Garp, and Saul, who are both Marines, still don't really get along with the way the world government runs things, even though they're kind of working for them, right? They all have an aversion to that. I feel like, yeah, there's some of them like Garp that, all right, they're against the world government, but they're not going to directly try to, challenge their power. In fact, Garp still works for the Marines. Then you have Luffy that's out there being a pirate, but he's not actively trying to, like, destroy the entire world government. Then you get to the far end of that spectrum with Blackbeard, who really is just like, Zaya! I'm gonna burn the world. I'm gonna take it over. It's kind of like Blackbeard's kind of philosophy. He would be the kind of guy that would, like, burn down Marijois and, like, wipe out the whole world government, okay? You could see that coming from Blackbeard. I used to think, like, okay, maybe when Blackbeard dies, he won't smile because it's like he didn't succeed in that inherited, like, his goal didn't get fulfilled, so he's not going to die with a smile on his face. If you think about this from another angle, if and when Blackbeard does die in the story, I think it's pretty. I think Blackbeard's gonna die by the end of One Piece. That's just because he's sort of like not. I mean, there's other villains in the story, but Blackbeard's kind of like the guy. So but he could still die with a smile on his face because you could still look at it from another perspective of he did fulfill his task, and his task might have not have been to destroy the world government, but his task might have been something else, like pushing certain things in order. Like, this might click together in a really weird way, where it was because Blackbeard raised such hell that he did, and threw the world into such upheaval, that it kind of opened the pathway for someone else like Dragon to take out the Tenryubito system. It might be some weird thing like that, where maybe Blackbeard might try to attack Marijois, and that allows Dragon and everybody to sneak in through the back door and then wipe out the Tenryubito. Like, I'm not talking so literally as something like that, but like it might be some case where it's like all the people that bear the will of D, the ones that have died and the ones that are still alive, still kind of had a part to play in this that resulted in the destruction of the way the world government is run, and the Tenryubito system specifically, okay? Here's something. So, when Whitebeard, we don't get a lot of main character deaths in One Piece, at least in the present. We get a lot of that in the flashbacks. And not everybody that's died in the flashbacks had the will of D and smiled, of course. Like Bellemere. Bellemere got shot by Arlong, and I think she was smiling in her last. I mean, when she was actually shot, that was in silhouette. That was obscured. But, her last, she turns to Nami and Nojiko like, I love you. And then she gets shot. So she smiled when she dies. That doesn't mean Bellemere had the will of D. But it does seem like look at like Ace dying with the smile. Whitebeard died. Whitebeard did not have a smile on his face when he died. He had a very serious look. But Whitebeard also has the stash. And his stash looks like a smile. And with everything with Oda, once again, it makes me second guess whether or not that was intentional. Like, the fact that his mustache has that very specific shape that looks like a smile. So when he died, in a sense, it looked like he was smiling with his mustache. But hey, if there's any man on this planet, fictional or non, that can smile with his mustache, it's Whitebeard, all right? And then you have Odin. Odin dies with a smile. Odin, that we know of, does not have the will of D. Whitebeard, Edward Newgate, did not have it either. But then you start to think from another perspective of, is it the initial that, means that you carry the will? It's a will. It's something else. It's more than just a letter in a name, right? Like, if Luffy was never given the D, I know, alright, I'm just gonna keep going. If Luffy never had the D in his name and his name was just Monkey Luffy, that sounds really weird, but if his name was just Monkey Luffy, would that change the person he is? Would he do things differently just because he doesn't have a certain letter in his name that he doesn't even know the damn meaning of? No, of course not. It's a will, and it's inherited by those that carry on the wishes and the drive, and I guess the overall goal of the Clan of D. Luffy, Ace, Saul, Roger, they all had that in spades. I would argue Whitebeard also had that as well. And I would also definitely argue that Odin had that. Odin absolutely had that. The parallels between Odin and Luffy in this flashback are insane. The way Odin acts, his crazy will and determination, the way he just reacts whenever he gets to a new island, like, yay, we're on a new island, he just jumps on. That's a total Luffy ploy. That's a total Luffy move, okay? So, like, I mentioned this in the review. I mentioned, like, oh, he died with a smile on his face, but he wasn't a bearer of the will of D. Maybe there was a situation in Wano where the names of Wano, like, they just don't have middle initials in Wano. They don't have middle names. It's just not a custom in Wano that's passed on. Or there was another reason where maybe that chain of command died at some point where it's like, pass on the will of D, pass on the D, pass on, oh, and then it got snapped at some point. I'm really not trying to. I'm seriously not. It's the letter itself, okay? Blame the letter, not me, okay? But it got lost at some point in the succession, and it's just like, Sukiyaki doesn't have it, and then Odin did not have it. But it doesn't matter if he actually had the letter. he's still a bearer of the will of D. All right, that's what I look at. And then that opens up way more things. That opens up like this, like let me explain this in a way that like Oda might do this, okay? It's the end of the story, and we're gonna finally find out what the will of D means. And it comes down to something like this. The letter does not matter. Anybody that follows the will of that clan bears the will of D. Whether or not they have it or not. The actual initial. It might be something like that. Now, I still hope that we find out, like, what the D actually stands for, whether it be a word or... If it's actually that, I mean, right? Like, okay, fine, sure, but that's another way you could look at it, okay? Maybe Joy Boy had like a beauty mark, and maybe that's what it's not a period. It's an actual. It's like it's not a letter. It's a symbol. It's a drawing of a smile with a little beauty mark next to it. That's what it actually is. Who knows, right? Actually, I don't know. Most of the time, is the D written with the period? With the dot? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Maybe it is just like literally like, because I haven't paid attention to it honestly, but I'm pretty sure like, you know, Luffy's full name is Monkey D with the dot Luffy, you know, but maybe it might just be the D itself. But anyway, yeah. I would like there to be a word that it means. Honestly, like looking back on it now, and, you know, because it could be, what if it's dream, or dawn, or devil? I'm like, those are pretty common words. I would much rather it be a situation where the clan of D comes up with their own unique word for it. Like, they had a motto, or it was written in, like, some language that existed long before the world government took over, like, thousands of years ago. There was some language that was unknown, and there was a word in that language that started with the letter D, and then that's what the D stands for. Maybe it's, like, a really hard-to-pronounce word. I don't know. But I would much rather it be that than it's just like, oh, yeah, the D stands for smile, or dream, or dawn, because that's like things that we've already kind of looked at. I would much rather it just be a new word, okay? And we find out the meaning behind said word when we get the flashback, right? So, yeah, those that bear that will, they carry the D, whether or not it's in their name or not. Okay, that's a good way to end the video, and I didn't have any more D jokes, so go ahead, comment below. It's kind of, that's how it works, right? All right. So anyway, have a good one, everybody. Just gonna turn you over this way, Barry. Okay. Have a good night, everybody. Remember to smile.